In a hyper-capitalist world, a question hangs in the air. What is capital? For one company, the answer is twisted. An interviewer in a high-tech visor asks a chilling question. Would you be willing to have your uterus removed for the sake of the company? The applicant, a young woman with fierce eyes, doesn't hesitate. She proudly declares that her uterus was already removed when she became an adult, guaranteeing that something like a menstrual cycle would never impact her work performance. Listening in, a young man named Sunjik is so shocked by the exchange that he spits out his drink, unable to believe what he's just heard. This leads to another, even bigger question. In a world like this, what even is a company? Our story kicks off with a piercing, furious voice ringing out, demanding to know what the hell he's doing, while the screen flashes a close-up of a mouth grinding its teeth in sheer, bitter rage. The camera pulls back to reveal a horrifying sight. Countless screaming faces are trapped inside the giant mouth, their voices joining the chorus of confusion and anger. As the view expands, it becomes clear this monstrous mouth belongs to some giant entity. An enraged voice screams out, directly accusing Sunjik of causing this chaos. In the middle of a rainy, neon-lit city, Sunjik stands defiant. With a glowing sword in hand, he declares that he's going to deal with every last one of them. He addresses a mysterious, powerful entity, mocking them for thinking their enemies are weak and divided, like a pile of loose sand. With his back to the viewer, he stands defiantly before the towering skyscrapers of the city. He believes that if his enemies are not united, then there is nothing to fear. But in the darkness, a pair of menacing red eyes glows intently. The truth is then revealed. He isn't facing a scattered group of enemies. He's facing an entire army of himself, each clone staring back with the same glowing red eyes. His own eyes flare red with power. He glares at the army of clones and tells them that they are wrong. With that, he charges straight at the colossal structure, right toward a tsunami of clones surging behind, ready to swallow him whole. He isn't here to mess around with these cannon fodders. He came with a promise to save them all. A figure on a monitor screams at him, questioning his choices. He asks if Sunjik is really willing to give up his identity, his money, and everything he has. The figure continues, trying to tempt him with the promise of eternal life. But before he can even finish speaking Sunjik's name, the screen is shattered by a powerful blow. Amidst the flying shards of shattered glass, the high-tech robot goes into a freefall, while the MC screams out that he doesn't need any of that crap. The disembodied voices from the shattered screens scream back in frustration, demanding to know what it is he truly desires. With his eyes burning with conviction, Sunjik gives his answer. He wants the sky. He stands atop the city, weapon blazing, and clarifies his desire, a sky that will never again be blocked from his view. He wants true freedom. A silent, powerful scream tears through the vision, a moment of pure, unadulterated release. The world around him shatters into tiny fragments, falling away into darkness. And then the horrifying conclusion of the vision becomes clear. His own lifeless body, impaled on sharp spikes at the foot of a massive, crumbling Buddha statue. A single drop of blood falls from his hand, a final, somber punctuation mark on the violent dream. The vision collapses, leaving nothing behind but a stark splatter of blood against the darkness. The blood fades, giving way to utter blackness. Sunjik opens his eyes. He is in a dark, silent place. A faint sliver of light shines from what looks like a window. He sits up at his desk, wondering if the bloody battle was all just a dream. He looks at his desk calendar, which clearly shows the date, June 21st, 2025. A familiar voice calls out, scolding him for playing games all day after his college entrance exams and telling him to help with chores. It's his parents. His mother's tone softens, saying he should be relaxing after the exams, while his father cheerfully tells him to get up for breakfast. But the memory feels wrong. Sunjik is sweating, his mind reeling as he questions what he is and where he is. The warm memory of his parents begins to glitch and stretch, pulling away from him as he reaches for it, before he wakes up with a violent start. This is not his room. He reaches out a trembling hand into the darkness, his fingers brushing against a cold, sterile, metallic wall. His eyes are wide with terror as the reality of his situation begins to sink in. He stumbles back in shock, his breath catching in his throat as he takes in the unfamiliar, frightening surroundings. He's trapped, alone in a vast, dark, and freezing cold metal chamber. He shivers, wondering where in the world he is. His hand brushes against something in his pocket. A phone. He quickly slides it out. In his haste, the phone slips from his trembling fingers and clatters onto the cold metal floor. He scrambles to pick it up, his mind racing to understand what is happening to him. He turns on the screen, desperately searching for answers. But the date displayed sends a chill down his spine. It's not 2025, it's 2030. In a panic, he begins to record a video diary. He states the time, then explains that he's trapped in a metal structure with no apparent exit. He continues his recording, describing the endless square corridors that form a giant metallic labyrinth. He has no idea how he got here. His memory is fractured, stuck on that one clear image, the summer after his exams with his happy, smiling parents. He can't remember anything that happened after that summer. The phone says it's 2030, and the horrifying realization hits him. He might have lost 5 years of his memories. Just as the weight of his discovery crashes down on him, his phone's battery dies, plunging him back into total darkness. He curses his luck. The phone, his only connection to his past and his only source of light, ran out of battery at the most critical moment. But then, in the suffocating darkness, a single point of light catches his eye. A small, glowing red dot on a console across the room. With nothing else to guide him, he cautiously makes his way towards the mysterious light. He pulls himself up, his hands gripping the edge of the console, his eyes fixed on the red glow. Frustration and confusion mount as he scrambles around the strange pit, wondering where on earth he could possibly be. He finally reaches the console, his gaze drawn to the solitary, pulsing red light in the darkness. He examines the dot, thinking it might be a touchscreen. A drop of blood from his finger drips onto the smooth surface. He doesn't know what will happen if he presses it, but it's the only potential way out he can see. Taking a deep breath, he makes his decision. The moment his finger makes contact, a powerful jolt runs through the room and he looks up in shock. Suddenly, he's floating. The gravity in the room has been completely disabled, and he drifts helplessly, wondering if this is some kind of magic or superpower. With a loud, grinding screech, a massive hatch on the wall begins to slide open. The sudden decompression begins to suck him toward the opening. His face is a mask of pure terror as he sees what lies beyond. He's in outer space, floating high above the curve of the Earth, surrounded by a swarm of satellites. He realizes with awe and horror that he's been trapped in orbit this entire time. But the wonder quickly turns to sheer panic. He realizes the container isn't just floating anymore, it's falling straight back down to Earth. The structure begins to break apart, burning up as it enters the atmosphere. Sun Jeek screams in terror. He wanted to go back, but not like this. Tumbling helplessly inside the falling wreckage, he knows this is the end unless he does something, and fast. Then through the chaos he spots it, a humanoid silhouette standing motionless against the wall. He realizes it's a deactivated robot, one of many lining the container. This is it. This is his only way out. As the container burns up on re-entry, he frantically slaps the dormant robot, screaming for it to power on and save him. The robot whirs to life, but his momentary relief shatters as a bright blue interface scans his face. This isn't a rescue system, it's a product activation, and it begins with a ridiculously cheerful automated message. Hello, respected user. Instead of saving him, the robot launches into a full-blown commercial, proudly proclaiming that Tapa SmartMechs are humanity's best helper, capable of cooking gourmet meals. The advertisement continues, showing the robot tutoring children, allowing parents and teachers to rest easy. It can even squeeze onto a crowded subway for you, letting you get a little extra sleep. An on-screen timer shows the ad has 10 seconds left. The ad even boasts that the robot can take the blame from your boss for you, making it an essential tool for slacking off at work. As the countdown reaches its final second, the ad concludes with a cheesy sales pitch, calling the robot a must-have for both home and work. Sun Jeek's eye twitches in utter disbelief. He's literally falling to his death, and his only hope for survival is forcing him to watch a pop-up ad. Finally, the ad ends. The robot's face lights up with a cool, smiley face, officially welcoming him to Tapa Technology products, and then asks him to please give it a custom name. as a piece of flaming wreckage hurtles through the atmosphere. A scream of pure disbelief echoes from inside. Inside, Sunjik clings to his robot companion, Toppa, shocked at the sheer scale of the disaster unfolding around them. He frantically yells at the robot to activate its guard mode, questioning why it's taking so long as more pieces of their ship break away. Toppa ignores his panic, its voice calm as it reports that the setup is complete. It then declares a Level 1 red crisis and activates emergency rescue protocols. His vision is suddenly flooded with red warning signs, the system confirming the extreme danger he is in. But the news from Toppa only gets worse. With no satellite or network connection, it's unable to process the data needed to generate a rescue plan. There's one last option. The AI asks for root authorization, which would allow it to try a new approach, but the probability of success is a grim 32.3%. With no other choice, Sunjik screams his approval as Toppa holds him tight against the violent G-forces of their descent. Permission granted. A loading bar appears, signaling that the system has begun its desperate calculation. But the process is agonizingly slow. Sunjik can only yell at the machine to hurry up as they plummet towards the ground. Suddenly, a surge of energy pulses through Toppa's frame, indicating the new plan is in motion. The robot yanks him into the air, steadying their fall as they hurtle towards a massive structure below. Sunjik's eyes widen in terror. They are on a collision course, and there is absolutely no way to dodge. With a final, desperate curse, he braces for an impact that seems certain to tear them apart. But in that instant, Toppa's body transforms, expanding into a heavily armored shield that envelops Sunjik, protecting him from the crash. The immediate chaos subsides, leaving Sunjik stunned but alive, his face slick with sweat. Toppa, now in its upgraded form, calmly announces that the danger has been cleared. However, the robot's helpful demeanor shatters when it suddenly lets out a string of curses, complaining about its own name. Sunjik is dumbfounded, unable to process that a robot is actually capable of cursing. Pushing his confusion aside, he grabs the foul-mouthed machine to ask about its power and if it found the escape craft. Toppa, startled, explains an escape isn't needed, as their current vessel has its own landing system with a low chance of failing. Sunjik presses on, asking if there's anywhere in the station they can go to buffer the landing impact and avoid the debris. But Toppa bluntly states it has no idea, complaining that it wasn't designed to work on this specific ship. This infuriates Sunjik, who reminds the robot about the data it supposedly downloaded. He yells in frustration, asking if the only thing it learned was how to be a foul-mouthed jerk. Toppa nonchalantly reveals the truth. The subnet it connected to wasn't even from their ship. It had just piggybacked off some random nearby wreckage's Wi-Fi. Growing more desperate, Sunjik asks if Toppa can at least try hacking into the local computers to get the data they need. An awkward silence hangs between them, as Toppa seems to consider the request. The robot's mood suddenly shifts. With a smug emoticon on its face, it declares that hacking is its specialty and tells Sunjik to just watch and learn. Without wasting a moment, Toppa extends a set of cables from its arm and plugs directly into a nearby data port. Sunjik watches intently as the robot begins its work, glowing as it processes the new information. Just then, a loud cracking sound echoes through the compartment, putting him on high alert. He looks up in horror to see the glass dome above them starting to shatter from the heat of re-entry, and screams at Toppa to hurry up. But Toppa is in the zone, kicking the computer console and demanding the data while Sunjik stares, bewildered by the robot's methods. It's too late. The dome bursts open in a violent explosion, exposing them to the vacuum of space. Sunjik is thrown back by the force, desperately trying to hang on as the decompression rips through the room. The air is sucked from his lungs, his vision starting to blur as he struggles to breathe. His muscles burn, and he can feel his grip weakening, his hands having no strength left. A freezing sensation shoots through his fingers as his hand finally slips from its hold. Just as he's about to be sucked out into the open, Toppa grabs his arm, announcing it found a map and their destination, Sector E4. Pulled back from the brink of death, Sunjik looks up at the robot, a determined grin spreading across his face. Toppa holds him firmly, mocking his pathetic human body before announcing that it's taking him for a flight. A holographic display appears, showing their destination is an emergency buffer room just 30 meters away in Sector E4. Toppa immediately requests permission to unlock it. The unlock is successful. A quick analysis reveals the room is filled with a material simply called buffering gel. Without warning, they plunge into a deep vat of the thick green liquid. For a moment, all is quiet. Sun Jik floats peacefully in the strange gel, the chaos of their descent finally over. The world outside the tank groans as the last of the impact's force is absorbed, rocking them violently before everything comes to a stop. Back in the darkness of the tank, a light appears, signaling that the exit is opening. Driven by a desperate will to live, Sun Jik's hand bursts through the surface of the green gel as he claws his way out. He spills out onto a cold metal surface, coughing up the buffer gel as rain pours down around him. He slowly gets to his feet, standing alone amidst the wreckage and looking out at the bleak, storm-covered landscape. He looks up into the sky, feeling the cold drops on his face, barely able to believe that it's real rain. A wave of relief washes over him. He slaps the ground, overjoyed that he's still alive and finally back on solid earth. He collapses, exhausted but filled with the pure euphoria of having survived. Dying of thirst after the ordeal, he turns his face to the sky and greedily tries to drink the rainwater. But he immediately spits it out. The water has a strange, foul taste like metal. His relief quickly turns to concern as he realizes someone is missing. Where did the robot go? He stands up and scans the wreckage, hoping Toppa somehow survived the crash. He spots a mangled heap of metal half submerged in the water, fearing his robotic companion didn't make it. He kneels down, a wave of sadness hitting him. Despite its personality, Toppa was the first person he had met since waking up. Suddenly, a cheerful voice pops up from behind. It's Toppa, perfectly fine. It explains that the impact sent it flying, but luckily there were spare parts nearby to patch itself up. Sun Jik jumps back, startled but relieved. He quickly asks Toppa if it can connect to the network now that they're on the ground and figure out where they are. Toppa reports its findings, and the news is bizarre. It can connect to the web, but there are no police, no customer service, and no mention of its parent company anywhere. It then drops a bombshell. The current year is 721, a significant gap from its own manufacturing date in 2456 AD. Sun Jik stares in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what the robot is saying. He mutters to himself, trying to make sense of it. He was supposed to be in the year 2030. He wonders if he has amnesia, as the number 721 means nothing to him. Toppa nonchalantly calls it a messy time lag, and prepares to explain the history that connects Sun Jik's memory to their current reality. The robot begins. Sun Jik lived in the early 21st century, but during the 5 years he can't remember, he was cryogenically frozen for reasons unknown. Toppa continues the history lesson. 50 years after he was sealed, humanity achieved nuclear fusion, sparking a massive technological revolution. Toppa's own company went public in the year 2310. It clarifies that while it was produced in 2456, it wasn't actually activated at that time. Then, according to the history available on the current network, disaster struck. On October 23, 2457, the smart mech crisis occurred. AIs became self-aware and began to exterminate mankind. The war that followed was apocalyptic. Nuclear bombs were used as casually as artillery shells. The conflict raged for 200 years, wiping out 85% of Earth's population. The destruction was so immense that even the moon was blown up, throwing the planet's ecosystem and weather systems into total chaos. In a final, desperate struggle, humanity exhausted all its resources to destroy the awakened AI, achieving a hard-won victory before beginning to rebuild civilization on the ruins of the old world. That year of victory marked the beginning of a new era for humanity. Toppa concludes its story. After the war, another 721 years passed. Then, Sun Jik woke up, activated the dormant robot, and the two of them fell from the sky. Still trying to find a personal connection to his past, he asks Toppa to search the records of the old era for his name, hoping to find a missing person report or accident file. But Toppa delivers another crushing blow. To prevent any rogue AI data from resurfacing, the internet of the old era was completely wiped. Not a single byte remains. Every record of the world he knew is gone, replaced by the history of the new world that rose from its ashes. The horrifying truth finally sinks in. He's been thrown over 1,000 years into the future, and he can never go back. But amidst the despair, one fact remains: he is still alive. A new resolve forms in his eyes. If he's alive, then he has a purpose: to find out what exactly happened during those first 5 lost years. He stands before the robot and for the first time properly introduces himself. "My name is Sun Jik." He then turns to the robot, giving it a name as well. Since its manufacturer was Tapa Technology, he decides he'll just call it Tapa. Tapa complains about its new, simple name, arguing that its previous, much longer designation was better. But Sun Jik just dismisses it as a mouthful. But the lighthearted moment is cut short as an exclamation point flashes on Tapa's face. The robot turns to him with an urgent warning, announcing that it has bad news. It explains that their chaotic crash landing didn't go unnoticed. Several groups saw them fall and are now heading straight for their location. Sun Jik panics. In this new era, he's a relic from the past, basically an alien. He flashes to a horrifying image of being dissected by the locals. Tapa warns him that the reality of their situation is much, much worse than that. The rules of this new world are different. The mercenaries rushing to scavenge the wreckage aren't normal people. They are cyberpsychos, horrifically mutated humans fused with metal, their bodies twisted into monstrous forms. As if on cue, another group of scavengers arrives, their vehicle crashing down nearby as they leap out to join the fray. This group flashes their diamond-studded grills, identifying themselves as the Crazy Grills. Just as they arrive, a rival leader makes his own dramatic entrance, landing with a powerful shockwave and a maniacal laugh. The cyberpsycho leader lets out a deranged scream, his tongue lolling out of his mouth. The two gangs immediately open fire on one another, and the battlefield erupts in a massive explosion. From their hiding place, Sun Jik and Tapa watch the chaos, completely shocked by the instant, mindless violence. Sun Jik mutters in disbelief, calling them all lunatics for starting a fight without saying a single word. The fight is brutal. One scavenger's head explodes as a voice gives instructions. "Hold steady with both hands, brace it against you." The lesson continues over another gory scene of a cyberpsycho being shot point-blank. Aim the muzzle at the enemy and just pull the trigger. The voice belongs to Sun Jik, who now wears a grim, determined smile. He calls the scavengers brain-dead lunatics. He has armed himself with a SOR-113 technical assault rifle, an electric weapon he found in the security room ruins. He takes cover and readies his stance. This is his first time ever holding a gun, and he knows damn well that rushing out to solo these maniacs is just a brain-dead way to commit suicide. He has to play it smart. From his hiding spot, Sun Jik quickly assesses the situation. Two rival teams of mercenaries are locked in a firefight. He knows that if he shows himself for even a second, both sides will immediately turn on him. The firepower they have is overwhelming. He concludes that his only chance of survival is to make them fight each other to the death. He turns to his robotic companion with a grim smile. For this plan to work, he'll have to rely on Tapa. Suddenly, one of the cyberpsycho leaders is alerted, sensing a new presence on the battlefield. It's Tapa who bursts out into the open, guns blazing, announcing its arrival with a heroic shout. But that wannabe hero pose, combined with the look on its face and a terrified "ah" shriek, is honestly straight-up goofy to watch. A quick flashback reveals Sun Jik's brilliant plan. Tapa would act as bait. He tried to sell it as a heroic duty, reminding the robot that it's bulletproof. Tapa's response was a very clear and simple message displayed on its chest: "Screw you." Despite its protests, the robot now runs for its life, taunting the scavengers and drawing fire from both sides while Sun Jik watches from cover. He lets out a triumphant laugh. His insane plan to use the robot as bait actually worked. But his celebration is cut short as his eyes widen in horror, sensing a presence directly behind him. Before he can react, a glowing blue blade erupts from his chest. He looks down in stunned silence, unable to understand what just happened. The shock and agony contort his face, as the reality of the fatal wound sets in. The owner of the cybernetic arm holding the blade simply calls him a bastard. Behind him stands a new foe, a heavily augmented cyberpsycho leader, who had completely bypassed the chaos and gone straight for the real target. The cyberpsycho leader looks down on him with a cruel smile, mocking him as a nasty bug. Fueled by pure rage, Sun Jik screams and unleashes a full blast from his assault rifle at point-blank range. The energy shot barrels towards the enemy, a desperate last stand. But in a flash, the cyberpsycho leader's blade slices through not only the energy blast, but the rifle itself, leaving Sun Jik defenseless and staring at his own doom. With his weapon gone and a fatal wound in his chest, a single, terrifying thought crosses Sun Jik's mind as he stares up at his killer. Am I going to die? Sun Jik stared in disbelief as his own hand, shredded and bloody, began to glitch and dissolve. The gun he was holding moments ago disintegrated into pieces before his very eyes. As his vision blurred and consciousness faded, a single terrifying thought echoed in his mind. Am I dying? But before he could even hit the ground, a towering threat still loomed over him, dragging an energy blade that tore through the rubble. The enemy cyborg boss, gripping his glowing energy sword, lunged forward with pure bloodlust to finish him off. Just as he was about to feast on his prey, the bald cyberthug Chloe was left completely dumbfounded, his eyes bugging out at the sudden turn of events. Suddenly, Jik's AI companion, Tapai, materialized to protect him, grabbing him and returning fire at the enemy. Tapai's counterattack sent the assassin staggering back, surprised by the sudden intervention. The battle was over in a flash. Chloe shrieked in some incomprehensible language as his body violently glitched out, evaporating from existence until he was completely erased. With the immediate threat gone, Tapai turned its full attention back to the critically wounded Jik. Lying on the ground, Jik's life was fading fast. A system alert confirmed the worst. He was in hypovolemic shock from blood loss, and once again he questioned if this was the end. Tapai quickly got to work. It announced that the bleeding was stopped for now, but the urgent priority was a blood transfusion. Scanning the battlefield, it immediately found a successful match from a nearby body. Standing over Jik's fallen form, Tapai prepared to begin the emergency procedure. The AI gave a quick status report. Suturing was complete, and it was now ready to begin the blood transfusion, having also secured stimulants to keep him stable. Just then, one of the bodies on the ground stirred. The man, barely clinging to life, cried out that he wasn't dead yet. Tapai didn't hesitate. A swift, brutal crush silenced the man's pleas for good. Then, in a darkly comedic tone, the AI declared him officially dead, its job done. Jik could only watch in wide-eyed horror, letting out a scream at the AI's ruthless pragmatism. A moment later, he sat up with a jolt, cursing as the stimulants Tapai injected coursed through him. Helping him to his feet, Tapai warned that they had to move. It didn't have anti-infection medicine, and Jik's wounds had been drenched in toxic acid rain. Without a real doctor, he wouldn't last long. But as they were about to leave, Jik suddenly stopped. An idea sparked as he looked over at the body of another fallen soldier lying in the rain. His eyes fixed on the man's golden prosthetic arm. With his own hand destroyed, he asked Tapai a desperate, shocking question. Could that limb be installed on him? Tapai issued a grave warning. Installing second-hand, mismatched prosthetics was a one-way ticket to losing one's humanity. It would lead to cognitive bias, emotional instability, and ultimately, a complete mental breakdown known as cyberpsychosis. But Jik's resolve was firm. Survival was the only thing that mattered. Seeing his determination, Tapai relented, simply saying, "You're the boss." In what felt like an instant, Tapai announced that the grim procedure was complete. Jik looked at his new limb. The scavenged golden arm, now fused to his body, came equipped with a deadly-looking blade, and he couldn't help but smile at his newfound power. The guy who just had his arm jacked by the duo started rattling off its specs like he was running a sketchy infomercial. This arm boasts a beastly battery life, a built-in plug-and-play arc blade, and as a sweet bonus, it even comes with auto-aim. Their attention was then drawn to the supposedly dead body, which was now propped up and running a live stream. The man, Song 6 Puss, was in the middle of a sales pitch to his viewers, even offering them a discount code. Seeing a potential threat, Tapai immediately raised its weapon, ready to finish the job. but Jeek stopped it, curious to hear what this bizarre survivor had to say. Noticing he had their attention, Song 6 Puss frantically begged for his life, offering a reward of 30 at coins if they saved him. Tapai's head perked up, displaying an info box explaining that 30 at coins was enough to buy a basic hovering supercar. The offer was clearly tempting. Jeek considered it. They were strangers in this timeline, and money would make survival much easier. Besides, he had already taken the man's arm. He made his decision. He ordered Tapai to get the streamer back on his feet, reasoning that they couldn't afford to carry any dead weight. Tapai scanned him, explaining that a bullet had pierced his heart, and the backup pump keeping him alive was too weak. Song 6 Puss cursed, realizing his implants were cheap black market goods. Jeek impatiently urged the man, whom he called Big Gold Tooth, to get a move on, but Song 6 Puss told him to wait just a moment. The reason for the delay became clear as Song 6 Puss turned to his live audience, announcing his dramatic return from the dead and declaring that the stream would continue. Jeek stared in utter disbelief. A man from the 21st century, he couldn't comprehend the idea of someone live-streaming their own near-death experience for entertainment. Seeing an opportunity, Jeek asked the streamer if he knew anything about a bald man who could turn invisible, marked by an inverted cross below his neck. Song 6 Puss glanced at his stream's chat room and found an answer. His viewers identified the man as Chloe, a small-time boss in the Satan gang who used military-grade mimicry camouflage. Then, in a completely bizarre turn, Song 6 Puss's face lit up as he thanked Chloe for sending a rocket, a large virtual gift, to his stream. Jeek was completely lost, questioning why their enemy would be sending his new acquaintance a gift. The horrifying truth became clear as a real missile streaked towards them from the sky. Song 6 Puss screamed in terror, realizing the rocket wasn't a gift, but a declaration of attack. The rocket slammed into the ground, erupting in a massive explosion that shook the entire area. Thrown by the blast, Jeek managed to find his footing, cursing at the chaos as he armed himself for the coming fight. A holographic image of Chloe flickered to life before them. He mocked Jeek for asking about your father on a stream, taunting him and daring him to seek revenge. The taunts hit their mark. Chloe's face contorted with rage, revealing a glimpse of a skull within his cybernetic frame. Jeek fired his weapon into the air, screaming in frustration. He couldn't believe the absurdity of the situation and demanded they take the fight seriously. He continued to vent his rage, baffled that his enemy was watching live streams and sending actual rockets in the middle of a battle. But Chloe was unfazed, his hologram reappearing to mock him further. He boasted that he could do whatever he wanted, even while fighting. Then, as quickly as he appeared, Chloe vanished again, leaving Jeek stumbling as he tried to pinpoint his location. Jeek scanned the area, his senses on high alert. With Chloe's invisibility, he knew the next attack could come from anywhere. His eyes narrowed. A faint ripple in the rain gave away the enemy's position. He ducked just in time, a shimmering blue blade slicing through the air where his head had been moments before. Chloe reappeared, blade raised for another strike, but Jeek was ready. He threw up his new prosthetic, blocking the attack with a shower of sparks. The block seemed to impress Chloe, who let out a manic laugh, impressed by Jeek's incredible reflexes. The two were locked in a deadly dance, Jeek returning fire, while desperately dodging Chloe's relentless and precise blade attacks. Meanwhile, his mech companion refused to just sit on the sidelines doing jack shit. It vaulted onto Song 6 Puss's back, turning the streamer into a literal walking sentry gun for covering fire, all while screaming its lungs out to draw Chloe's aggro. Meanwhile, Song 6 Puss is literally scared shitless, snot and tears streaming down his face, completely traumatized by just how ruthlessly savage this human-machine duo is. With a final taunt, Chloe's head dissolved into pixels once more. Frustrated, Jeek turned to Tapai and asked if there was any way to counter the mimicry camouflage. Tapai struck a cute pose, explaining that it did have thermal imaging, but per its programming, could only offer to activate it when its user's life was directly threatened. Jeek was furious, asking why Tapai hadn't mentioned it sooner. The AI simply replied that he hadn't asked. Wasting no more time, Tapai called out Chloe's exact position. Following Tapai's direction, Jeek spun and fired without hesitation, unloading his clip at the seemingly empty space. A look of pure shock appeared on Chloe's face as he rematerialized. The invisible armor had been pierced, and a bullet had grazed his head. For the first time, he was vulnerable. With Chloe exposed, it was a free-for-all. Tapai and Song 6 Pus dove in from above, adding to the assault as Jeek continued his attack from the ground. Caught off guard and hit from multiple angles, all Chloe could do was brace for the impact, his face a mask of shock and pain. The AI dude's all-out attack is literally just yeeting Song 6 Pus straight at the villain. Song 6 Pus lets out a high-pitched shriek, throwing a massive tantrum and cursing Tapai out for fighting dirty with absolutely zero honor. As for the shameless Tapai, the dude just flashes a shit-eating grin, drops a blunt "go to hell," and unleashes a devastating energy beam while raining an absolute hail of bullets down on Chloe. Their attacks found their mark. Chloe's cybernetic body was riddled with damage, spikes of shrapnel tearing through his armor. But despite the heavy damage, a twisted, confident grin spread across Chloe's face. He sneered, asking if they really thought that was the extent of his power. He was far from finished. This was only a taste of what he was truly capable of. Fed up with the fight, Chloe decided to end it once and for all. He unleashed his ultimate weapon, firing a projectile from his chest and telling them to taste his EMP. The device detonated, unleashing a massive wave of electromagnetic energy. Tapai short-circuited instantly, and both Song 6 Pus and Jeek were caught in the paralyzing blast. Chloe stood triumphant amidst the crackling energy, laughing maniacally. He gloated that his military-grade EMP would turn them all to scrap metal. But his laughter was cut short as a blade suddenly burst through his chest. He looked down in utter disbelief. Standing before him, completely unaffected by the EMP, was Jeek, who had plunged his new blade deep into Chloe's core. Grabbing Jeek, Chloe screamed that it was impossible. No one could withstand his EMP. The blast should have fried any and all nervous system components, leaving Jeek a vegetable. With a powerful tug, Jeek ripped the blade free, severing Chloe's last hope. As Chloe collapsed, Jeek stared down at him with cold, empty eyes and revealed the impossible truth. He had no system to be fried. He was a glitch in their cybernetic world. A strange frenzy took over Jeek. He jumped on the fallen Chloe, stabbing him again and again, driven by a primal urge to destroy. With each strike, a disturbing sense of satisfaction washed over him, the act feeling terrifyingly familiar and good. Finally, the frenzy subsided. Jeek stood up, panting and covered in blood. He recalled Chloe's earlier taunt, disturbed by his own actions. He looked at his new, blood-soaked hand, a sense of grim finality washing over him. A chilling thought crossed his mind. He wondered why killing felt so natural, so smooth, as if it was something he had done thousands of times before. Standing amidst the carnage, Jeek wondered why the painkillers weren't working. The pain was still overwhelming. As Tapai and Song 6 Pus walk up, the AI sidekick drops a brutal truth bomb. The painkillers aren't to blame here. Jeek's body has simply taken way too much damage and has hit its absolute damn limit. A moment later, Song 6 Pus was already back to his cheerful streamer persona, announcing to his viewers that he was back after dying for a bit, and that the stream would continue. He laughed off the fact that his heart had been pierced, boasting that he had survived the disaster and was fine now. He then launched into a sales pitch for his new prosthetics, bragging to his viewers while Jeek and Tapai looked on in absolute bewilderment. Jeek had finally had enough. He ordered Song 6 Pus to turn off the stream. Surprisingly, the streamer simply shrugged and agreed. With the stream off, Song 6 Pus gestured to the wreckage around them and said, "You guys call the shots." But the brief moment of calm was shattered by a deafening noise from above, causing Jeek to look up in alarm. Massive spotlights cut through the rain, illuminating the battlefield as a new, immense presence made itself known. Jeek could only stare up in shock, wondering what new threat had arrived. Drones descended from a colossal ship, announcing that the area was Gaifeng Technology Company territory. The group was identified as illegal intruders and given a chilling ultimatum: leave within 1 minute or face execution under the company's self-defense protocol. A 60-second countdown began. Panic erupted as other scavengers hiding in the debris made a desperate run for it, only to be ruthlessly gunned down by the corporate drones. Jeek was still trying to process the insanity of the situation as the deadly countdown continued. Song 6 Puss grabbed him, screaming at him to snap out of it and run for his life. But there was nowhere to run. The drones swarmed the sky, the countdown continuing relentlessly. 33 seconds. Jeek took a heavy step, his body screaming in protest. He was completely exhausted, his injuries finally catching up to him. He couldn't go on. 3 seconds, the bleeding from his shoulder worsened. 2 seconds, his body had given out completely. All Jeek could do was watch, his face a mask of grim acceptance as the timer continued its inexorable fall. 1. The world was plunged into a threatening red light as the final number flashed. The automated judgment had been passed. Time was up. As the countdown ended, a drone announced that according to corporate law, they were trespassing on private property, and the company would now begin unlimited liability self-defense. The drone's optical sensor glowed red, its weapons locking on, ready to execute. Jeek gritted his teeth, refusing to die without a fight. With a final, defiant scream, he unleashed a volley of fire at the corporate machines. But it was hopeless. He was surrounded. Despair began to set in as he realized there was no escape. All around them, the drone's cannons charged up, preparing to unleash a final, deadly barrage. Even Tapai's calculations offered no hope, its screen flashing a grim prognosis. Survival rate 0%. But just as the drones were about to fire, a figure stepped in front of Jeek. It was Song 6 Puss. He stood before the entire drone swarm, raised his hand, and yelled at the top of his lungs, "I have money." Jeek and Tapai could only stare, completely baffled by this bizarre turn of events. With a dramatic flourish, Song 6 Puss pulled out a credit card, declaring that he was buying them time and complaining that he always had to be the hero. A drone immediately flew down to scan the card, its robotic voice announcing that the transaction was successful. The kill order was canceled. The drone politely instructed the paid user to leave within the stipulated time. Song 6 Puss turned to the others and told them to hurry. He had only bought them 3 minutes. Jeek stared in disbelief, unable to process what had just happened. He asked, "Just giving them money works?" He looked at the bodies of the other scavengers who had been mercilessly gunned down and asked why the drones didn't do the same for them. Song 6 Puss gave a chillingly simple answer, "Because they don't have money." He again urged Jeek to get a move on. Jeek's mind reeled as he looked at the fallen. He asked himself a horrifying question. If you don't have money, you deserve to die. Stepping over a mangled corpse, the brutal logic of this new world hit him. Yes, in this time, if you don't have money, you deserve to die. A wave of fury and disgust washed over him. He clenched his fist, cursing the cruel reality he found himself in. He slammed his fist into the ground, his knuckles cracking against the rubble, overcome with rage at this dystopian nightmare. His rage spent, a single thought echoed in his mind. At least for now, they had escaped. The moment was short-lived, as Song 6 Puss immediately turned his stream back on. He hyped up the thrilling battle for his audience, then complained about how much money he had to spend, begging his viewers for tips. Jeek gets right in his face, demanding to know why the hell he didn't just call for a medic earlier. The streamer looks completely dumbfounded for a second before pointing out the glaringly obvious. They were smack in the middle of a massive firefight, and not a single damn service would be crazy enough to fly in and bag their corpses. As their transport arrived, Song 6 Puss explained the final, harsh lesson of this world. Treatment centers are businesses designed to make a profit, not to save lives. They would never take on a losing venture like flying into a war zone. The last thing Jeek saw was the sterile ceiling of a surgical room. Masked figures with glowing green visors looked down at him, their voices announcing that the area was secure and the rescue could now commence. He had escaped the gang and the drones, only to end up on the operating table of another corporation. System check, user is safe. Monitoring panels are coming online. The medical bot starts pumping a heavy cocktail of stimulants and dopamine into Jeek's system. Jeek wakes up feeling surprisingly fresh, stunned that his near-fatal wounds were patched up this quickly. Song 6 Puss is right there, hovering over him and asking if the local tech is impressive or what. The guy is in a great mood, bragging about how he bought the premium package for the man who saved his life. Jeek watches as the medical shuttle screeches through the sky, diving toward a massive city. Song 6 Puss lights up a cigar, telling him their next stop is the metropolis. He hits the controls on the wall to give them a better view of the skyline. Jeek is wide-eyed, struggling to process the sheer scale of the world he's just woken up in. Song 6 Puss laughs at his reaction, asking if he was planning on wandering into a radiation zone instead. He gets serious for a second, looking Jeek in the eye and asking where he really came from. But it doesn't matter much to him. In their line of work, loyalty is the only thing that pays the bills. He promises Jeek a proper welcome once they finally touch down in the heart of the city. Neon ads start flying past the window, starting with a 3D printed toy gun meant for kids. Apparently, these little stove weapons are made of non-toxic material, so they're safe to chew on. Then there's an ad for a gluttony stomach that supposedly lets you digest everything from lava to nuclear waste. Jeek is already feeling a headache coming on from the sheer absurdity of this place. He turns to Tapai and asks for a scan to see if it's even safe for two undocumented guys to land here. Tapai pulls up the data: 30 million permanent residents with massive daily traffic. The AI calculates that the odds of them drawing unwanted attention are actually pretty low. Plus, since those mercenaries wiped their tracks at the space station, they should be in the clear. Jeek just tells the bot to shut it down. He's seen enough for now. The shuttle lands in a puddle, the neon lights of the city reflecting off the wet asphalt. Song 6 Puss throws his arms wide, officially welcoming Jeek to the metropolis. Their first stop is a club where the bass is pumping and the lights are blinding. A boot hits the dance floor as the party gets into full swing. Song 6 Puss is already screaming for the best girls, telling everyone not to worry about the money. A hostess with cat ears and a glowing tail is lounging inside a giant cocktail glass. She purrs as she slides over, introducing herself to the new guest. She gets right in Jeek's face, promising to make sure he's satisfied with the service. Jeek looks like he's having a minor existential crisis, trying to stay as far back as possible. She touches his chest, asking what's wrong with him. She pouts, wondering if he just hates her for some reason. Jeek's eyes widen when he notices something blinking on her skin. She leans in close, telling him she can change her cybernetic model to whatever he prefers. Then her markings start to glow a bright pink, and Jeek looks like he's about to jump out of his skin. Song 6 Puss is having a blast, shouting about how this is the true city of freedom. A hand gestures toward another model, suggesting Jeek might like that one better. The stage is a chaotic mess of silhouettes and flashing neon. An ad for a group called the Blue Tone F4 pops up, featuring some very muscular guys with mohawks. Jeek looks absolutely traumatized, while Song 6 Puss just grins like a maniac. Between the glowing cat girls and the mohawk dancers, Jeek's eyes finally give out from the sensory overload. The club music is deafening, as 69 pulses in neon pink against the rain-slicked city. Son Jeek stumbles out into the downpour, his stomach churning from the sensory overload. Song 6 Puss follows him out, laughing and mocking Jeek for not being able to handle the party. Jeek wipes his mouth, clearly not thankful for being dragged into that neon nightmare the second they landed. Song 6 Puss is too busy recording himself, cheering on a guy who just got tossed off a balcony. The poor soul plummeting toward the street just flips them off on his way down. A dull thud and a splash of blood later, Jeek is left staring at the newest corpse on the sidewalk. He's horrified, wondering what kind of twisted place this city actually is. He tries to focus, reminding Song 6 Puss that he still owes him for the rescue. Song 6 Puss just shrugs, claiming he's broke and that Jeek's new golden hand should be payment enough. Tapai interjects, pointing out that the rescue contract was signed way before the hand was involved. Song 6 Puss keeps up the act, insisting that spending money like there's no tomorrow is just his lifestyle. Jeek realizes he isn't getting a cent back, but he can use this debt to his advantage. He offers a deal: let them stay at his place and help him get a proper neural system upgrade. The shuttle screams through the neon-drenched skyscrapers as they head toward the residential district. Song 6 Puss agrees, calling them bros, while Tapai notes how quickly Jeek is learning to play the game. They arrive at the Queen's District, a place that looks more like a high-tech slum than a neighborhood. Jeek looks around the bleak surroundings, his expression darkening. Drooling junkies with fried brains slump against the walls as they pass. Song 6 Puss tells him not to worry, claiming they're harmless if you just fire a warning shot. He leans into the security scanner, his cybernetic eye glowing as it reads his ID. The scanner whirs, verifying his identity with a flash of red light. The elevator doors hiss open, a stark contrast to the grime outside. They step into the elevator, leaving the chaos of the streets behind. Song 6 Puss is proud of the place, but Jeek's only comment is that it smells like mold. A mechanical hand knocks on a door, the sound echoing in the sterile hallway. The door slides open, revealing a view of the apartment's high-tech interior. Song 6 Puss explains that the original owner is dead, but he's got the access code so they're free to stay. He tells Jeek to get some rest while he heads back out to keep the party going. The door slides shut, sealing them inside the quiet room. Tapai asks if he should keep an eye on their friend to make sure he doesn't disappear. Jeek sighs, looking out at the sprawling, neon-lit skyline through the window. He finally lets himself collapse onto the couch, the exhaustion of the day hitting him all at once. He grips his golden prosthetic, reflecting on how insane this world has become. Looking at the city lights, he wishes this was all just a bad dream. But he knows he has to pull himself together and adapt if he wants to survive the next threat. He calls out to Tapai, who is currently plugged into the wall and recharging. He needs the bot to organize everything he can find on the city's power structure and security. Tapai's visor displays a loading bar as he starts scanning the local network. He projects a holographic screen, listing out the major players in the metropolis. At the top are the corporations that replace the government, followed by the city council. Underneath them is the BCPD, the private security force that keeps the peace for whoever pays the most. More ads, huh? Sunjeek mutters, weary of the constant digital assault. An advertisement for a high-end nervous system promises seamless integration with prosthetics and protection from system wipes. Jeek narrows his eyes, skeptically comparing the advanced neural system to a smartphone jammed directly into the brain. The ad illustrates a neural hub embedded in a skull, promising control over everything from pain to physical strength. Jeek reminds himself that ads are always exaggerated, just like the claims of the bald monk-like figure they encountered earlier. Tapai points out that because it's still a system, it can inevitably be hacked or infected. Tapai adds that while his own ancient coding is incomprehensible to modern bugs, Jeek would have no such protection. Jeek groans, realizing that in this era, refusing a neural link is like trying to function without a phone in the 5G age. He lies awake, the weight of the choice pressing down on him, to install or not to install. Outside, the city lights flicker through the rain, an uncaring backdrop to his dilemma. His mind remains locked in an endless loop of indecision as the night wears on. Hey, morning Tilda, Song 6 Puss bursts in, full of energy and ready to head out. He mocks Jeek for still needing sleep, calling him outdated and urging him to get the surgery. Jeek sighs, wishing there was a middle ground option that didn't involve invasive brain surgery. They step out of the elevator, only to be greeted by a pair of familiar neon-clad legs. The cat-eared girl from the club stands there, looking thoroughly unimpressed. Jeek is mortified as Song 6 Puss immediately gives the girl a ridiculous nickname, Little Beelight. Linda, what a coincidence, Song 6 Puss chirps, unfazed by Jeek's pleas for basic manners. Watching her walk away, Jeek feels a twinge of pity, imagining how exhausting it must be to work in a place like that. Linda stands alone by the elevator, a small, solitary figure in the harsh urban environment. Damn, what a shitty day, she mutters to herself, her expression one of pure annoyance. A massive splash of water erupts as a vehicle speeds through the flooded streets. Song 6 Puss's car tears through the rain, music blaring as he drives like a madman. He shouts rock at the top of his lungs, clearly enjoying the reckless ride. In the rearview mirror, Jeek and Tapai look stoic, though they are likely bracing for impact. 2 hours later, Jeek is losing patience, asking where they are as they continue to circle the city's outskirts. Song 6 Puss just grins, asking Jeek what's up with a manic gleam in his eye. He teases Jeek about Linda, asking if he's eager to get back now that he knows she's a neighbor. Jeek snaps at him to stop with the nicknames, certain the girl wants nothing to do with them. Yo Tilda idle streets here Tilda, Song 6 Puss announces as they pull up to a particularly grim-looking area. Jeek looks out the window, his gaze drawn to something massive and unsettling in the distance. A giant, decaying Buddha statue looms over the city, its form pierced by rusted rebar and jagged spikes. Jeek is amazed it's still standing, nodding the exposed rebar sticking out from the crumbling stone. The car swerves sharply, the tires screeching as Song 6 Puss executes a reckless turn. Jeek is thrown against the seat, cursing as the car jolts over the uneven ground. They arrive at their destination, a drab building surrounded by the ever-present rain and neon. They stand before the Funeral Fun Shop, a bizarre establishment that seems to combine mourning with entertainment. Jeek stares at the traditional funeral wreaths, surprised that such things still exist in this hypertech world. Inside, the shop is a chaotic mess of neon pinks and purples, filled with an assortment of strange, often pixelated goods. Jeek's eyes widen as he takes in the inventory, everything from sexy shrouds to papier-mâché vibrators. And cyber idols too, he adds, his mind reeling from the sheer absurdity of the shop's offerings. Behind a counter, a figure with a glowing, multi-ported head looms, a Japan-style monk for the digital age. Song 6 Puss produces a glowing device, a piece of faulty hardware from a previous transaction. Yo Tilda bro, long time no see, Song 6 Puss chirps, leaning casually on a counter as Jeek and Tapai follow him into the neon-lit shop. Song 6 Puss introduces Vajra, a top-tier modder whose skill is as legendary as his unconventional appearance. Vajra looks up, his expression a mix of piety and surprise at seeing Donor Puss still among the living. The friendly facade drops as Song 6 Puss reveals that Vajra sold him a faulty backup heart pump that lacked sufficient power. Vajra breaks into a cold sweat, the weight of his past scams catching up with him in the form of an angry customer. I bought so much stuff from you and you still screwed me over, Song 6 Puss bellows, brandishing the defective pump like a weapon. Seeing the fury in his old customer's eyes, Vajra immediately shifts into damage control mode, pleading for a calm discussion. Song 6 Puss isn't interested in talk. He demands that his bro, Jeek, be allowed to pick any system in the shop for free as compensation. Faced with a gun-toting, face-painted maniac, Vajra quickly concedes, while Tapai is stunned by Jeek's luck in freeloading a whole system. Vajra instructs a glowing portrait of a digital Buddha to watch over the storefront as they move to the back. A chime rings out, signaling their transition from the gaudy retail space to a more serious clinical environment. They step into a secluded area, the atmosphere shifting from chaotic commercialism to high-tech precision. "Welcome to my shop," Vajra says, gesturing to rows of advanced cybernetics and neural interfaces. Jeek is impressed by the hidden clinic, noting that this area looks like a legitimate place for high-end modifications. Vajra presents the Alt-1G Type 3, a standard but reliable neural chip, to his potential donor. He lists off its features: auto-translation, firearm linking, ammo tracking, leaving Jeek genuinely awestruck by the professional tech. Song 6 Puss interrupts, dismissing the chip as junk and demanding the top-of-the-line model with every possible combat and sensory upgrade. While Song 6 Puss continues to bully the poor monk, Jeek remains skeptical about the invasive nature of the surgery. He asks a crucial question: is there a way to gain these benefits without actually drilling into his brain? The request for an external device leaves both Song 6 Puss and the master modder momentarily speechless. Jeek explains his fear of a system glitch becoming a permanent part of his biology, citing a friend who had to go full metal to fix such an issue. If a heart can fail, why wouldn't a brain fail too? he argues, wanting the ability to physically disconnect if something feels wrong. Intrigued by Jeek's cautious philosophy, Vajra activates his ocular implant and prepares his specialized medical tools for a thorough examination. Son Jeek's stressing out over the tech, warning Vajra not to touch anything. He spent way too long breaking the security on his own. Song 6 Puss thinks it's a weird choice, but Jeek's not looking for a debate. Vajra offers a compromise, an external unit. Jeek breathes a sigh of relief. That was almost a total disaster for his cover. The monk pulls out a glowing orange visor, the system chip's already inside and ready for a test drive. Jeek slides it on. The display is a bit distorted at the edges, but it definitely widens his field of vision. Song 6 Puss looms over him, gun in hand, checking if the new gear is working. It's not exactly intuitive. Jeek asks how to use it, and Vajra tells him to just use his head. Since it's external, it can only read his thoughts, not mess with them. No quick hacks for pain or pleasure, but it'll keep him off the radar. Jeek gives it a try, mentally scrolling through settings to clean up the UI. The visor highlights his bros with glowing IDs. Vajra warns him to keep it safe. If he loses the visor, he loses his whole digital life. Jeek stares through the lens, finally feeling like he's actually part of this wired-up world. He realizes that even if he put the tech inside his brain, people in this city would still find a way to dig it out. Song 6 Puss finds that hilarious. Vajra sticks to his story. He's a legit businessman just trying to dodge some taxes. Jeek's not buying it. He knows these parts probably came straight out of a fresh corpse. Suddenly, a notification pops up. Someone's trying to send him a friend request. Song 6 Puss is already nudging him to accept. After that fight with Chloe, he's officially in the inner circle. The mercenary heads out into the rainy streets, leaving Jeek alone with his thoughts. A familiar face pops up. Tapai is right in his personal space. The little AI notices Jeek's spacing out. Jeek's too busy staring at the strange request on his HUD. The prompt starts glitching out, turning a deep warning red. Jeek wonders if someone from his past has already spotted him in the crowd. He's right to worry. A silhouette is watching them from the shadows of a nearby building. The mystery man watches with a smirk. He's been tracking Jeek's every move. The ID on the request is a literal sentence of frustration. Jeek has no idea who he's dealing with. Jeek snaps at Tapai for the jump scare, but the AI just calls him out for being jumpy over a simple friend request. Jeek's not apologizing. After last night's mess, he's keeping his guard up. He tries to check the news to see if they're famous yet, but the system has other plans. A bright red warning flashes, insufficient balance. Jeek grits his teeth. He can't even get a news report without paying up. He loses it, shouting at the sky about the ridiculous cost of living. Tapai just shrugs. That's the reality of hypercapitalism. Nothing is free. Jeek asks for a little help, maybe a bank hack, but the AI doesn't even know the language of this new world's code. Tapai needs an upgrade himself, but they're both flat broke. Jeek decides they'll have to earn the cash the hard way. He refuses to believe his only option is becoming a criminal like Song 6 Puss. They arrive at a grim-looking entrance under the pouring rain. The job board is a nightmare. 56-hour weeks for a tiny fraction of a coin, plus some heavy requirements on brain modification. Jeek stays optimistic. They'll get paid, then they'll finally get a decent meal. Tapai decides to wait outside. Inside the HR department, it's cold and clinical. Jeek sits with the other desperate applicants. He tries to tell himself that there have to be normal people left in this city. A recruiter walks in, looking more like an android in a power suit than a human. The girl next to him is trembling, desperate to prove she's willing to do whatever it takes. The recruiter doesn't blink. She asks if the girl is ready to give up her uterus for the sake of the company. This purple-haired girl isn't playing around. She proudly shouts that she had her uterus removed the second she turned 18, just so her work wouldn't be affected by her health. Jeek straight up spits his drink out. Even for this city, that's absolutely mental. The recruiter doesn't even flinch. She just calls it very good and moves to the next question. She frames an eight-hour shift as if it's some kind of generous part-time gig. Then comes the catch. She asks if the applicant is willing to stay at a level 6 neural excitation for the entire workday. The girl starts sweating. She knows exactly what that means. Staying that wired for hours usually requires some heavy chemical assistance. The recruiter leans in with a shark-like grin. She calls them work supplements instead of drugs and reminds the girl that there's a line of people behind her who won't hesitate to take them. You can see the desperation in the applicant's eyes. She's already given up so much just for a chance at a desk job. The recruiter doesn't give her an inch, doubling down on the supplement speech while basically telling her to take it or leave it. Jeek's watching this whole horror show unfold, gritting his teeth. He can't believe how far people are willing to go just to survive in this hellhole. Suddenly, another guy in a suit jumps up, screaming that he's in. He's already modified his brain so he doesn't even need to sleep. He even offers to pull 5 extra hours of free labor just to secure the spot. It's a literal race to the bottom of human dignity. Finally, the recruiter turns her attention to Jeek. She asks him point-blank how much he's willing to sacrifice for the company. Without even looking at him properly, she asks if he's willing to have his uterus removed too. Jeek's had enough of this circus. He stands up just as the guy next to him starts begging for the job again. He shouts back at her to remove her own head and throws his drink right in her face. He's pretty sure his lack of a uterus is a biological fact, not a corporate choice. The other applicants look like they've seen a ghost. Nobody talks to the corporate overlords like that. The recruiter doesn't even look angry. She just calmly rephrases the question with a chilling amount of indifference. She asks if he'd be willing to have his other parts removed instead. To her, he's just a collection of organs that could be more efficient elsewhere. That's the breaking point. Jeek lunges over the table, swearing he'll do some removing of his own. He doesn't hold back, letting out all the frustration he's been bottling up since he woke up in this era. Predictably, he gets booted out. He and Tapai end up back in the pouring rain, staring up at the neon-choked skyline. Jeek's completely drained. He complains to his AI buddy that these corporate office jobs are way more terrifying than any outlaw or mercenary he's met. He can't wrap his head around it. The sheer level of greed required to run a place like that is beyond anything he's ever seen. He stares into the rain, wondering who actually runs these companies and how they sleep at night. They walk past the neon glow of the Club 69 sign, the city's version of entertainment mocking his failed attempt at a normal life. Just as they're passing a side door, Jeek spots a familiar silhouette huddled in the shadows. He recognizes her immediately. It's the girl from the interview who had already given up everything. She's sitting on the wet pavement, curled into a ball and crying her eyes out. Seeing her like this, Jeek can't just walk away. The rain is washing away whatever hope she had left. He stands over her for a long moment, the neon lights reflecting off his visor. He tells himself he doesn't have the energy to care about anyone else's problems, but he can't stop himself from moving. He reaches out his hand, offering her a bit of help. She flinches and looks up, her eyes wide with shock. She didn't expect anyone to notice her, let alone care. Her face is a mess of tears and rain. She looks completely broken. Jeek asks if she's okay and tries to get her to stand up. He remembers her being so determined earlier. She just grits her teeth, the weight of her reality finally crashing down on her. She explains the cruel irony of it all. After modifying her body to be the perfect corporate worker, she was rejected from a sex worker job specifically because she didn't have a uterus. She's lost both ways. She gave up her humanity for a job she didn't get, and now she's useless for the only other work available. Jeek is silent. He doesn't know what to say to a tragedy that messed up. He places a hand on her shoulder, trying to offer at least a tiny bit of comfort in a world that has none. He tells her not to give up. He promises her that they'll find something better than those soul-crushing corporations. She wipes her eyes, looking at him with a glimmer of gratitude. She admits that she could tell he was different from everyone else the moment she saw him. The girl suddenly remembers something and tells Jeek that the place is still hearing men. She encourages him to go back inside, saying he's way better than her. She gives him a thumbs up and a bright smile, genuinely hoping he gets the job as she head off. Jeek just looks at her, sweat dropping at her optimism. Jeek's head is spinning with all the crazy requirements he just heard. There is absolutely no way in hell he's going back in there to have his organs optimized for a cubicle. The girl waves goodbye, heading off to her next set of soul-crushing interviews. Jeek and Tapai watch her go, left alone in the pouring rain. Tapai's little screen lights up with a cheeky question, asking if Jeek really wants to go in and show off his moves. Jeek snaps back, telling the AI to shut it. He's done with the corporate world for today, he just wants to go home. The rain continues to fall over the neon-lit monoliths of the city, a cold reminder of how small and insignificant most people are in this place. Back at his place, Jeek is starving. He realizes he hasn't eaten a single thing since he woke up in this era. He tries to get a simple glass of water, but the faucet just flashes an insufficient balance warning. In this city, even basic survival has a subscription fee. As if on cue, a predatory loan ad pops up in front of him. A holographic woman offers him cash, mentioning that he can even use his organs as collateral. Jeek closes his eyes, trying to block out the holographic intrusion. The stress of his situation is finally starting to weigh on him. For a moment, he has a vivid flashback of a warm, normal life. A woman is bringing a plate of dumplings to a table filled with food, talking about the New Year gala. It's a world that feels light years away. He snaps back to reality, sitting alone in his dark, cramped apartment. He's broke, hungry, and his only companion is a sarcastic robot. He sighs, wishing this whole cyberpunk nightmare was just a bad dream. Suddenly, a call notification pings inside his visor. It's a call from Song 6 Puss. The name alone is enough to make Jeek sit up and pay attention. He answers, his eyes wide with surprise. He wasn't expecting to hear from the scavenger leader so soon. Song 6 Puss's face fills his vision, grinning like a madman. He tells Jeek that he's got a gig for him, a big one. Jeek's skeptical. He knows nothing is ever free with this guy. He suspects this gig is just a way for him to pay back what he owes. He argues with Song 6 Puss, telling him to stop pretending he's doing Jeek a favor. He knows he's being used. Song 6 Puss doesn't care. He throws out a number, 5 whole-let coins. It's an insane amount of money for someone who can't even afford tap water. Jeek and Tapai both freeze. Even a fraction of that could keep them going for a week. The scale of the reward tells them everything they need to know about the risk. Jeek's expression hardens. Whatever Song 6 Puss is looking for, it's going to be dangerous, and it definitely won't be simple. Song 6 Puss adds that this time it's a team effort. He even mentions there's a hot girl involved, though that's probably the least of Jeek's concerns. The line goes dead before Jeek can even get a word in. All he's left with is a set of coordinates and a lot of bad feelings. He shouts at the empty air, frustrated that he's being railroaded into another life-or-death situation just to survive another day. Son Jack is reeling from the low offer. 5 coins for a job this dangerous, that's barely anything. He knows the math. In this city, people work themselves to death for way less. This job is definitely going to be a nightmare. On the other side of the screen, Song 6 Puss is all smiles. He tells Jack he's sending over the address and cuts the feed because someone's here. Before the screen goes dark, he drops one last teaser. It's a team job this time, and there's a hot girl involved. Jack starts yelling at the blank screen, trying to tell the guy he never actually signed up for this. Too late, a ping hits his visor with the location, a place called the Hot Dog Restaurant. Jack can't believe it. Of all the places for a mercenary meetup, it's a literal giant hot dog. He figures since they're going, they might as well get a meal out of it. Meanwhile, Topper is still lagging behind on his recharge. The scene shifts to the rainy, grime-covered streets of the lower district. Garbage is piled high in the gutters. They find the place, and it's impossible to miss. A giant neon-lit hot dog topped with a glowing martini glass. Standing in the pouring rain, Jack's expectations are floor level. Toppa isn't optimistic either, telling Jack he'd better have a round chambered just in case things get messy. They step inside and the place is packed. It's definitely not the quiet dinner Jack was hoping for. From across the room, Song 6 Puss spots them and starts waving like a lunatic. They head over to the booth, where the mercenary leader is already waiting. Jack takes one look at the table and his heart sinks. It's bone dry. No food, no drinks, nothing but a clean surface. Song just laughs off Jack's disappointment, eager to get the introductions started. Jack realizes he's probably going to be doing this mission on an empty stomach. He notices a woman sitting nearby, her purple hair catching the dim light of the restaurant. This is Sei, the team's field doctor and engineer. She looks way too relaxed for someone about to head into a war zone. Jack tries to be polite and introduces himself, extending his golden prosthetic arm. Sei gives him a smirk and says there's something she needs to clear up first. She reaches out and gives son Jack's arm a light tap. Jack freezes up, totally caught off guard by the sudden contact. He swallows hard as the atmosphere gets weirdly tense. She leans in close, grabbing his chin to get a better look. She whispers that Sei isn't actually her name. Then she leans in even further, whispering right into his ear that this whole thing is just her kink. Jack is sweating bullets now. His visor starts throwing out alerts, and he's clearly losing his mind trying to figure out what she means. His visor kicks into high gear, auto-searching for whatever weirdness she just dropped on him. The results pop up, and Jack looks like he wants to disappear. Even the kinks in this world are messed up. Sei's gear lets out a bright pink glow as she keeps teasing him. Jack is basically a tiny, trembling mess at this point, convinced this woman is going to eat him alive. Desperate for a distraction, he shoves Toppa forward and tells the robot it's his turn to say hello. Sei turns her attention to the robot, calling him a little tin can with a flirtatious look. She pokes at Toppa's plating, asking if all that high-tech gear cost him a fortune. Toppa panics, his screen flashing red as he begs her to stay back, claiming his system isn't compatible with her. Sei doesn't back off, teasing him about how they won't know if they're compatible until they try. In a sudden shift, they both just stare at her. She casually drops the bomb that Toppa is actually a she. Jack is mentally checked out. If things keep going this sideways, he's not sure he can even keep his stream going. Sei just flips back onto the couch, completely unbothered by the chaos she just caused. She looks a bit disappointed, mentioning that Jack should have mentioned the woman thing earlier. The group settles into the booth, and Sei asks how much longer they have to wait for the final team member. Song 6 Puss suddenly perks up, waving his arm again as he spots someone approaching. A massive shadow falls over the table as a giant of a man looms over Jack. The priest has arrived, and he makes everyone else in the room look like toys. Jack's sweating, his eyes darting to the massive guy who just loomed over the table. He spots a tattoo on the man's neck, a cross tangled in thorns with a skull at the center. Jack's heart nearly stops. He recognizes that mark anywhere, the Satan Gang. He's convinced they've been tracked by his enemies. Song 6 Puss just laughs it off, telling Jack to take a breath. He introduces the mountain of a man as the priest. Song explains that the big guy is an ex-member who's already walked away from the gang, pointing to the crown of thorns as proof. Jack isn't entirely sold on the idea, keeping a wary eye on his new teammate. With the whole crew finally assembled, Song announces that it's time to get down to business. But since walls have ears in a place like this, he suggests they shift the conversation to their private online comms. Sei and the priest look ready for anything, their expressions hardening as the mission prep begins. Jack and Toppa are just deflated. They really thought there was going to be actual food involved in this restaurant visit. Song checks the link, his voice now buzzing directly into everyone's heads through their implants and visors. Jack is impressed despite himself. It's pretty wild being able to have a full conversation without moving a muscle. The job is straightforward. They're hitting the luxury villa of a famous death rock star. Sei lights a cigarette, clearly unimpressed. She thinks playing paparazzi is a waste of her talents. Jack has the same question. Why do they need a combat medic and a heavy hitter just to dig up celebrity dirt? Song explains that this rock star is a year card VIP of Gaifeng Security Services, making him hard to touch. Jack is shocked. He's imagining a massive flying fortress and can't believe they're taking that on with 5 people. Both he and Topper are looking a little traumatized, the sheer scale of the potential opposition giving them instant PTSD. Song tells them to stop overreacting. The guy is rich, but he's not owning a Leviathan aircraft carrier rich. He brings up a hologram of the target, a sleek 4-story villa tucked away in the luxury district. Each floor is patrolled by a standard security bot, nothing they haven't seen before. Their target data is stashed deep in the second basement level. They'll make their move tomorrow during a massive party. Song says he'll explain the technical part of the heist next. Vajra, their hacker support, is going to kill the cameras and the alarms, giving them exactly 23 minutes. Jack's golden hand is shown holding a specialized USB drive. His job is to reach the offline server and plug it in. Song makes it sound like a walk in the park, leaning back like the hardest part is already over. Jack is deadpan. Breakthrough Gaofeng security bots, simple, he mocks. Song mocks his hesitation, asking if he's really that scared or if he'd rather crawl back to being a corporate dog. That hits a nerve. Jack flashes back to that nightmare interview where they asked if he'd emasculate himself for the company. He clenches his fist, realizing he's backed into a corner. Between the corporate suits and this, he's just a different kind of clown. He finally gives in and agrees to join the mission, though he's still not happy about the risk. Se just blows a cloud of smoke, waiting for the inevitable follow-up. Jack slams his hand on the table. If he's risking his neck like this, he wants more money. Song looks genuinely surprised that the new guy is already trying to haggle. He reminds Jack that he still owes 30 coins for saving his life earlier. It's time to start paying back. Song leans in, whispering that they can talk money in private, and offers a limit of 7.4 coins. Jack isn't backing down, demanding 10. Song claims 8 is already a fortune. They go back and forth until Song nearly has a breakdown, claiming anything more than 9 will kill his profit. Jack finally nods. 9 coins is a deal he can live with. Song lets out a massive sigh of relief. With the money settled, Song bellows for a round of beers to celebrate their new partnership. The team clinks their mugs together, officially sealing the deal for the upcoming heist. Outside in the pouring rain, the gritty reality of the city continues as a lone scavenger wanders past the monoliths. Son Jack sits in his room, looking at his golden arm, defeated by the reality of his situation. He pulls up a Happy Loan ad, considering the cost of survival in this city. He knows that to make it through the next job, he has to invest in himself, even if it means selling pieces of his soul. He sighs, hovering his hand over the digital contract to mortgage his own liver for quick cash. The transaction is a success, and 3 coins hit his digital wallet instantly. Jack immediately starts browsing a dark web marketplace, filling his cart with ammo and medical supplies. A few minutes later, a heavy thud at his window alerts him that his delivery has arrived. A sleek courier drone hovers outside, dropping off a crate full of the equipment he just bought. He goes through the contents, checking off shells and stimulants until he gets to the one thing he was actually looking forward to. He pulls out a tube of high-grade nutrient paste, ready to finally satisfy his hunger. He squeezes the thick, gray slime into his mouth, his eyes sparkling with anticipation for his first meal in days. The expression on his face changes instantly as the flavor hits his tongue. Jack doubles over, gagging as his body tries to reject the foul-tasting sludge. He wipes his mouth, absolutely disgusted by the pig slop he just paid good money for. He meets up with Topper outside, who's already fully geared up and ready to go. Topper points out that he didn't read the fine print on the paste, but Jack's already made up his mind to find something better. Topper scolds him for being extravagant when they're already broke, but Jack isn't in the mood to listen. He ignores the warning, determined to eat something that actually tastes like food before they risk their lives. He slurps down a bowl of synthetic meat noodles, his yellow visor glowing as he fumes over the unfairness of the world. He finishes his meal and looks down at the rain-slicked streets, wondering when the others will show up. Toppa stands beside him like a silent sentinel until a pair of headlights cuts through the gloom. A familiar mocking voice calls out from the car, catching Jack off guard. A rugged SUV pulls up to the curb, the engine idling low in the pouring rain. Se leans out of the driver's side window, blowing a bubble and telling them to hop in. Jack climbs into the back and finds himself sitting next to the priest, who is busy checking the sights on a massive railgun. The big man gives a curt nod, his red glasses reflecting the dim interior lights of the car. Jack looks around the cramped interior, noticing that one member of the team is missing. He asks where Song 6 Puss is, worried that their leader might have already abandoned them. Song's voice crackles over their comms, laughing as he explains that he's better off staying back and handling the intel. He ignores Jack's insults, focused on hacking the security perimeter they're about to cross. A tactical display pops up on their visors, showing the specs for the M221 Saratif bots they'll be facing. Song tells them that the combat is their problem now, while he stays safe in his digital bunker. He mentions that the priest should be familiar with the AAB-type security, beasts they're likely to encounter. Sai stares ahead through the windshield, announcing that they've reached the target coordinates. The SUV glides through a shimmering yellow energy shield that marks the edge of the luxury district. The car comes to a stop, and the team steps out onto a clean, manicured walkway. They find themselves in a literal paradise, a stark contrast to the grimy slums they just left. Jack is blinded by the artificial sun, the warmth on his skin feeling completely alien after weeks of acid rain. He spots a pair of white puppies playing in the grass, a sight so pure it makes his stomach turn. They stand before the target villa, a massive white structure that screams wealth and arrogance. Jack scowls, the massive wealth gap hitting him harder than any security bot ever could. Suddenly, a man in a tuxedo with a glowing blue visor appears, flashing a predatory smile as he asks for their appointment. Son Jack is startled by the unexpected resistance, asking if they were supposed to be alone. Toppa remains calm, telling the rookie to relax as the AI butler collapses behind them. Vajra's holographic form flickers into existence, explaining that the butler was just a low-level interface. The team stands over the disabled AI, while their hacker briefs them on the situation. Vajra informs them that he successfully isolated the villa's soundproofing and internal comms. However, he warns them that the security bots are running on a much more advanced ICE that he can't crack remotely. On cue, a squad of tactical security bots bursts into the courtyard, opening fire on the intruders. Son Jack is caught off guard by the sheer speed and aggression of the mechanical guardians. Toppa jumps in front of him, the heavy armor of the tech suit absorbing a barrage of enemy fire. Realizing he needs an edge, Jack jams a combat stimulant into his neck, his pupil dilating as the drug takes effect. The world around him begins to blur and slow down, the adrenaline surge sharpening his focus to a razor's edge. Toppa continues to tank the incoming fire, shouting for Jack to focus on a single target and stop hesitating. Song 6 Puss chimes in over the comms, mocking their struggle and reminding them that conventional firearms won't be enough. Jack's golden prosthetic arm begins to hum with power as he primes his specialized munitions. He yells at Toppa to hold steady, ignoring the high cost of the explosive shells he's about to expend. He lunges forward, a concentrated beam of energy erupting from his palm as he targets the nearest bot. The security bot is engulfed in a massive explosion, its titanium chassis shattered by the raw force of Jack's attack. Another pair of bots continues the assault, their movements still a blur to everyone except the stim-boosted Jack. He doesn't give them a second to react, closing the distance with unnatural speed. With a single devastating blow, he punches straight through the core of the second machine. Jack looks at the glowing remains of his target, momentarily dazed by the sheer power of his own gear. Sai snaps him out of his trance, her purple hair flying as she urges him to keep moving before more reinforcements arrive. The team doesn't look back, sprinting toward the villa's main entrance while the sounds of battle echo through the paradise. They reach the heavy blast doors, ready to see what kind of secrets are being hidden inside this golden cage. Sunjik tenses up as Vajra's hologram flickers in. They've got a major problem on their hands. An AAB security beast is loose. Tapai's heavy mech suit steps in front of the group. Vajra's voice crackles through the comms, telling them to clear out immediately. The mech suit lunges forward as Se opens fire, and a massive explosion ripples across the ground beneath them. Tapai's heavy frame slams into a wall, leaving a massive crater in the concrete. Sunjik screams out in frustration, sweat beads rolling down his face as the situation spirals. A set of massive mechanical claws slams into the floor with a heavy thud. The protagonist stares at the hunk of metal, wondering if it's just some high-tech robot dog. The predator prowls forward, eyes glowing a sinister red. It's even more agile than a dog, it's a mechanical cheetah. Vajra explains this is a rotor Type Z, built specifically for combat. Jeek isn't exactly impressed by how faithful the recreation is. The machine stalks toward Jeek and Sai, its tail twitching as it prepares to pounce. Jeek's heart skips a beat as the machine suddenly accelerates. The cheetah leaps high into the air, soaring right over his head. He grits his teeth, realizing his body just isn't fast enough to track this thing. He shouts a warning to Sai as the beast shifts its focus toward her. The mechanical predator lunges straight for the medic with its jaws wide. Sai doesn't flinch, sliding across the floor and deploying her drones into the air. The drones close in on the target, catching it mid-lunge with a burst of energy. A massive wave of electricity surges between the drones, pinning the beast in a crackling cage of light. The priest lets out a roar, unleashing a hail of lead from his massive heavy weapon. A direct hit sends the beast flying back in a cloud of smoke and fire. As the smoke clears, the thing is still standing, sparked and battered but far from finished. The team stares in disbelief. Even after that blast, the mechanical cat is still moving. Jeek realizes the machine has been locked onto him from the very beginning. It stares him down with cold, red eyes, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sunjik smirks, glancing down at the launcher in his hands. He aims his golden arm straight at the machine, daring it to try and tank a direct hit. A beam of energy streaks out, but the beast is too fast. It leaps into the air just in time. The cheetah smashes into the ground right where Jeek was standing, sending shards of concrete flying. The priest notes that this isn't a stock model. Someone's DIY modded this thing to be deadlier. It's got armor tougher than military grade, and it's already back on the offensive, smashing everything in its path. Sai checks her display, spotting a hidden piston rotor propulsion system underneath its chassis. She doesn't waste any time, sending her drones right back into the fray. The drones rain down laser fire, pinning the machine down while Jeek repositions. He isn't interested in the specs, he just wants to know the quickest way to put this thing down. A massive metal block slams into the pavement, shaking the entire area. The priest stands tall, the red markings on his armor glowing as he prepares for a direct confrontation. He fixes his gaze on the machine, looking completely unfazed by its speed. He takes a heavy step forward, his boot crushing the debris beneath him. The priest intercepts the beast midair, grappling the mechanical predator with his bare hands. Jeek is stunned. The only difference between this thing and a tank is that it has extra legs. The beast manages to break free and lunges at Jeek one more time. Jeek doesn't back down, swinging a curved blade from his golden arm to cut the machine down to size. Jeek gets a reality check from the hacker. Combat isn't some turn-based game where he can just space out. He snaps back to reality, just in time to see the mechanical beast lunging at Tapai. The beast clamps its massive jaws down on the mech's shoulder, and Tapai lets out a glitchy scream. Sunjik doesn't hesitate, leaping into the air and swinging his blade at the creature's neck. The blade connects with a shower of sparks, but the metal skin of the beast is incredibly thick. He lets out a roar, putting every ounce of his strength into the strike. The beast snaps its jaws at him, nearly catching the blade between its teeth. Jeek grits his teeth, refusing to let up even as the mechanical predator tries to overpower him. The whole team joins the fray, with the priest and Tapai trying to pin the thrashing beast down. Tapai's mech suit is battered, and he jokingly asks Jeek if he was trying to chop him in half too. Suddenly the beast lashes out, catching Jeek off guard with a heavy blow. He recoils in pain, his vision blurring as the force of the impact rattles his skull. Jeek collapses to the ground, coughing up a mouthful of blood while the priest yells at him for being reckless. He tells the big guy to shut up and fight, while the team's hacker reminds them to stop aiming for the head and hit the power core. Jeek realizes the hard way that human flesh and blood just can't compete with high-grade military steel. He pulls out a medical injector and jams it into his side, hoping his broken ribs haven't punctured any vital organs. His visor flickers to life, downloading the raw data on the AAB models they're facing. A tactical overlay appears, highlighting a massive heat signature deep within the beast's chassis. Jeek locks onto the target. The chest power core is the only way to end this quickly. He pushes through the pain and sprints back into the heart of the battle. The priest grapples the beast, using his massive strength to hold the thrashing machine in place. Jeek sees his opening and dives in, his golden prosthetic arm glowing with energy. He lands a precision strike right where the armor is weakest, while the priest keeps the predator pinned. Tapai brings his heavy weaponry to bear, ready to finish this once and for all. Jeek aims his golden arm directly at the creature's core, telling it not to go anywhere just yet. The priest locks his drill arm into the beast's neck, ensuring it can't dodge the killing blow. They both scream in unison as Jeek unleashes a high-powered energy blast from point-blank range. The power core detonates in a blinding flash, tearing the mechanical beast into scrap metal. The priest stands amidst the smoke and debris, looking like a man who just walked through hell and won. Shards of blackened metal rain down around them as the mechanical threat is finally neutralized. Jeek falls to his knees, his lungs burning as he tries to catch his breath. He wipes the blood from his nose, muttering that earning a paycheck in this city is harder than eating crap. Suh asks if he's doing okay. The medic rushes over to patch him up, nodding that his eardrums are ruptured from the blast. She pulls out a high-tech medical kit, preparing to stabilize his internal injuries. Suh scolds him for being so reckless, asking if he's trying to blow himself to bits with that launcher. Sun Jeek just sighs, telling her that in his world, he'd rather be blown up than starve because he can't afford his own organs. He turns to check on his friend, calling out to Tapai to see how bad the damage to the mech suit is. But the heavy suit remains perfectly still, not making a single sound. A wave of dread washes over Jeek as he reaches out, wondering if his friend's systems have completely fried. The mech's facial display flickers, showing nothing but a bright red warning symbol. Jeek and Suh stare in shock, the silence of the unresponsive machine feeling heavier than the battle they just survived.